All right, I'm going to get started now. We don't have a whole lot of people watching the YouTube right now, but just so you know, this will be saved and published to the Star Wars CCG YouTube account to watch at a later date as well if you can't join us for the live discussion. I believe Tom Kelly is now on as well to discuss some of the questions and the D&D happenings for this set. Tom, can you hear me? I can't hear Tom, so I'm gonna try to have him. We try to have him figure out his audio. Tom, can you hear me now? All right, so let's just get started with the questions. Hopefully, you guys have had some time to look at the list right now. Um, Tom's going to try to figure out his audio as we go here. First question comes from Airmet69. What path of removal do you feel Lightside should take against Executor with deflector shield generators and a pair of admirals, let's say Thrawn and Piet? Please consider in the answer how reasonably easy this is to set up. So, um, first thing is that the deflector shield generators, a lot of feedback from the playtesting team so far was that it helps against all paths of removal, and I think that's a valid concern. However, the device itself is not pullable right now. It doesn't provide a whole lot of benefit for each of those different paths of removal. The power plus 2 is nice, and the immunity of less than 5 is good, but the immunity less than 5 doesn't help a card like the Executor. The weapon protection may be what you're concerned about, and it protects from two of the biggest Starship weapon, interrupt helpers, combined attack, and power pivot. Now, one of the things that we got from development, a comment on this, was that Darkside could devote a lot of cards and a lot of force and a lot of their setup to get the Executor in place in a system, usually with the steals getting worse all the time. And sometimes you kind of just have to concede the system and try to beat them elsewhere in another system. If you want to full-on attack the Executor that's fully loaded with this and with the admirals, like you said, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to outpower them some way if you can. I think a lot of the light side capitals that we saw in this set could possibly help to do that. We've seen some good stuff in playtesting from Admiral Akbar and leadership. You can also add more to attrition if you get another second capital with them there as well. And you have to try to crack their immunity. Someone else suggested in the thread using Green Meteor in Green Squadron 1, and that could be a good way of getting rid of one or two of the admirals. You could spin with Hand Chewy Falcon. That's a pretty good way to almost crack the immunity already, just right there. So you have to try to be strategic with the play making decisions that you do with as light side. Try to avoid them if you can. But there could be if you're set up for it, you may not be able to use the combined attack anymore, but you might be able to try to go at them head on if you want. Tom's back now. Let's see if we can hear Tom again. No, he's still having trouble with his audio, so we'll try to get back to him soon. Just want to say thanks to everybody for posting the questions. There's a lot of good questions here as well. I'll try to get to as many as I can, and you're on about a 1 minute delay, so if you post something else, I'll try to get to it before the end, and should be live for another 25 minutes or so at least, till around 5 o'clock. Next question, let's see. We've got a lot of comments from Mike French. Don't really see a question. So I'm going to skip that. He makes some good points, though, and got some good concerns, good discussion points for the community, I think, but I'm looking for questions specific right now. So more echoing concerns from a few others about the deflector shield generators. Development trusts that it's going to be good, and I trust in development, and there are going to be some options for it. As the light side player, I don't think it's as good as some people may make it out to be, but it is, supposed to be near the top of the power curve. One function that we actually took off that it used to do in playtesting was forfeit to use pile for 3, and we decided that it was going to be useful almost in every game as it was anyway, so we took that off. So there are some changes that we have made, some concessions with it as well. There's a kind of a question from Indiana Jones Jedi Knight, and one of the things that he wanted to talk about, he's talked a lot about this too earlier on in playtesting, was the Force is strong with this one. And at first he was really excited to use it, and then he found that in practice it actually wasn't really was kind of lackluster in his words. He says, can you explain how or why that text was settled on versus some of the other suggestions, and why it retains the I have you now canceller versus the circle canceller? So it's a good question. We kind of went back and forth on this a lot. There were two different targets we were looking at, was which light side characters can we use this with, and then which dark side cards can we use this with. And originally it said a Padawan or Skywalker, I believe, and that was pretty broad. You could use it with any of the Lukes that you had in your arsenal, any of the Padawans, which there's going to be more in the future. And then the thing that kind of concerned us there was using it with Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight, who already has a lot of good synergy with him as well, especially with like my father before me. And then the second part of using it against Dark Jedi was that this works against any Dark Jedi. So that was Sidious, Dooku, Emperor, Vader, Maul. Whereas if you look at the dark side counterpart, I have you now, sure it works with any Dark Jedi, but it only works against Rebels. So it's kind of limited in that regard. So one concern from development was that this hits way too many dark side cards, not so much that it wasn't good enough on the light side, but so we considered making it just the Episode 1 Dark Jedi, or possibly just the non-Episode 1 Dark Jedi, but we ended up going with non-Jedi Skywalkers or Padawan. So this means that you can do it with any Luke except for the LSJK, Luke Skywalker Rebel Scout. So maybe this will encourage a little bit of the older Lukes as well, or if there's a future Luke that comes out that's ability less than 6, could work with that as well. And we wanted to cancel the I Have You Now because we found I Have You Now was kind of just a blowout card. And we didn't want this to be a blowout card like that, where if you found this card early on and the opponent didn't have a gift, then they lose. So we tried to take that off, and we tried to kind of mitigate that kind of blowout factor that I Have You Now has as well. Tom is back, and I think we can hear Tom now.
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Tom.
Whoa, okay. I think it was the Windows 10 update or something.
So I was just discussing the Force is Strong with this one. Maybe you could give a little bit extra insight as to why the text we have now was settled on, and why it wasn't made a little bit more powerful, and why it was keeping the I Have You Now versus the circle canceller.
Well, I'm not sure if you covered this already, but one of the things that we brought up was you've got there's two analogous dark side interrupts that we're looking at. Obviously, I Have You Now and Maul Strikes. And I Have You Now is good against a certain subset of light side mains, and Maul Strikes is good against another subset. Whereas we originally had the Force is Strong with this one is going to hit every dark side main there was, and it was probably a little bit too strong in terms of there are a lot of dark side decks that want to drop Vader to a site and be okay there, Emperor to another site, stuff like that. And it was just kind of opening them up to overflow. And so we kind of reined it back a little to a more reasonable level, I think. And the other concern was that in the last couple of tournaments since my father before me has come out, we've seen that card be in almost any platform you can think of. And we didn't really want to give Luke Jedi Knight yet another tool when seems like the defining ground character for light side right now. So I think that's why it's not quite as strong as we might have thought it would be originally, but I think it fits in a good place in the meta.
Yep, I agree. So we have a second question from Indiana Jones Jedi Knight. I understand the struggle, particularly with Imperial entanglements, to balance the first turn battle, but by making light side control location at all times, any worry that games between entanglements and this objective will take a bit longer, with potential to flip each other back a lot? Do you think that line will still help it keep IE in the game against the objective? Tom, do you want to start?
Actually, this line of text was one that we debated literally until the last minute. It was the last change that we were going back and forth on about this set. And I think the idea has been that you wouldn't think so at first, but the light side objective has actually been testing very well against entanglements, even despite the fact that you expect to lose Tantive 4 on turn 1. And so this control text is a way to balance the mirror a little bit more and make it so the dark side has a chance going back and forth. And personally, I like games that each turn one player is flipping the other one back, and that's good interaction. You're using all your sites, you're battling for resources. Sounds fun to me.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think we kept it on there because we wanted to encourage more interaction, and we didn't want this to be a deck where you would turtle at one system, throw at one site, and never flip back. We wanted it to be a way that you needed to actually control some locations, maybe spread out strategically a little bit. I know a lot of people love the move phase. We want to keep that going along as well. And if Darkseid decides that maybe it's in their best interest to try to stop you from controlling your locations, to put you back for a turn, that means they're going to have to go to more locations, more battlegrounds. So I think all this stuff is good. And as you mentioned, this has been testing very well against contenders so far, and we want it to be an even matchup. And I think keeping this line there to control it definitely makes it a more even matchup. I'm not too concerned about the time limits. I don't think that this is going to add too much to that. I think, if anything, you're going to have more interaction and more cards on the table. I think it might be a wash, personally, as far as the time games go.
Yeah, I mean, it already starts a ship on the table, so you've got kind of the setup phase already started, so that kind of helps with that.
Yeah. All right, we've got a third question from Indiana Jones Jedi Knight. Setting aside Cad Bane, who is conditional, between Maul, Kanan, and Padme, why so much unconditional, splashable, and blanket hate on immunity to attrition all in one set? I'll start here. So first of all, I don't necessarily think, I wouldn't call Maul, Kanan, and Padme unconditional, because that either require you to be one of your own characters or one of the opponent's characters, very specific. So Padme, for instance, she won't cancel anyone's immunity except for Vader's. She can add a Destiny to attrition with your other characters, so that's encouraging you to combine a few different characters of your own. Maul only works against a few of the opponent's characters as well, so if they're not playing those characters, then he doesn't do a whole lot. And then Kanan was changed recently to be only with 2 other rebels. So I don't think they're all unconditional. I do think they're kind of splashable, and I think our focus for the light side cards here was to give light side some better support characters, since we found that a lot of times when you're building decks, you have to choose, do I want Luke in space or do I want Luke on the ground? Do I want Han in space or do I want Han on the ground? And Obi in space, Obi on the ground. There's so many of these mains that are also the best starships. So we wanted to kind of give you more options as a light side player when you deck building. Put some other side characters in, so you don't have to make a sacrifice in one of the theaters to still have a good character in. As far as the blanket hate on immunity attrition, I think hate is a strong word, and I think that anytime you can increase the chance of removing characters from the table and removing cards from the table, I think you're going to get more strategy involved. You're not going to see so much as just like dropping a Dark Jedi or a Jennifer Palpatine alone, who's probably going to be okay for a while, especially playing Force Field. We want some stuff here that will help you clear the opponent and move the game along a little bit. And I think this kind of ties into the last point you made about time games. And I think adding more to attrition, these cards you mentioned, also Akbar adds to attrition in some cases. I think that's going to help the game move along a little bit quicker too.
And I'm not sure I would really call it an anti-immunity to attrition theme, because one of the big things that we're bringing back is the Home 1 package, and that's really something that thrives on its high immunity. That's the reason why people play it. And that and okay, well, that's the main one. Or Rebel Leadership as well, just limiting Battle Destiny, stuff like that. So you're going to see some of those cards, but you're probably not going to see them all at the same time. I don't feel like immunity to attrition is going anywhere.
All right, so let's try to make this one a quick one, Tom, because this one has kind of been around for a while. But can you explain why no change to Dooku?
To Dooku?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I wanted there to be changed to Dooku.
We have a split in D&D on this. Yeah. Some of us are kind of like, let's just let him go, and some of us are like, yeah, it's probably not really good for the game. So we were split, and I think that's probably the big reason why we haven't seen anything yet, because we don't have a mandate inside D&D to make this kind of change.
Right, and I don't think anyone really thinks it's absolutely imperative. Like, it would be, I feel like it would be nice if Dooku worked that way, but he's not breaking the game or anything. So, and I mean, the other thing is, let's see where everything falls. Like, we've made a lot of changes. Even Decree being changed is pretty big for Dark Mains X, and maybe Dooku, the way he is allowing those decks to be in the right place right now. So we'll have to wait and see.
We got a question from Devastator. Why not reintroduce Stomplink Access V so you're able to play R3, T2, and Cannon 4 on turn 1? I never understood why Stomplink Access, its Darkseid counterpart with their droids, did not survive the reset. So Those cards were designed by the current design advocate, Michael Tomaszewski. I love the cards. I thought they were great. They added a little bit of different ways you could go when you're building decks. When you start with Droid. I don't think this is the right time to reintroduce another filling it up like that. I can't speak to why it was not included in the base set. I wasn't on the reset strike team. But we don't want it to be extremely easy for light side to just move Canada to Alderaan directly by adding to the. So I don't think we had a good reason to. This is always something we can add on in the future as opposed to kind of building it up too strong right from this way.
Right, I just had to look up R3T2 just now. And yeah, that seems like a pretty decent way, but another way, and probably the most common way that we're going to see, is starting a new Secret Base V to pull a system to move Tantive to before it gets to Alderaan. So there's going to be at least one stop in the meantime. Or we might see an Insurrection build using Document Transit to get to Alderaan. You might want to use the Droid, but I'm not sure that's the most reliable option, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, if there was a reliable way to pull them, that could become another option. But one other option that we think is worthy of exploring is starting squadron assignments. Getting out a ship with 5 hyperspeed, you can transfer R2 over their first turn.
Right.
I think there's a lot of possibilities for how to build the deck, so I'm excited to see what the players can do. All right, I got a bunch of questions from Ethereal. These are good questions. I really like these questions a lot. So, Tom, what cards had the most revisions of trouble within D&D? I think the objective is obvious.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and this has been true of pretty much every objective that we worked on in my time in development, is that it's the hardest to predict by looking at the text what it's going to do. I remember first seeing the Slavers objective. It was ridiculous. You had no idea. And the same is true here. And you kind of just have to see how it works in playtesting, and you get a feel for what are the strengths of the deck, what are the weaknesses, where is it too good, and yeah, geez, I don't know how many versions this went through. Did you keep track, Matt?
Nope, I can't count that. Huh?
Yeah, double digits, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was a lot. I think that's really the only card that stands out. It's something that gave us a lot of difficulty too. I can't think of anything else. There were a few that kind of went down to the wire, like we talked already about Spike Shield Generators and Force of Strong System, but I wouldn't say those gave us trouble, just like the objective did.
Right, no, it was primarily the objective.
Yeah. Second question from the video: how are full D-slip cards chosen, and when will we know the others? Honestly, I don't even know who chooses them. They kind of come along naturally. One thing we always look for is something that is easy to acquire for players. We don't want to do something that's like a first on rare and put it on an essential card, or something we need multiple of.
Right. There was a lot of back and forth about the image for Darth Maul because of that.
Yeah, that was the biggest one, I think, as far as the image and what image we had. There was a lot of things at play, like what was an appropriate image, what was the rarity, and the ease of acquiring it, something that would fit thematically. It's probably, I would say, it's a decision that's decided on by the card designer, whether it's player or designer. Sometimes the advocates will step in if they need to say, like, yeah, we shouldn't do this one. Sometimes playtesters can give a suggestion and we pick one.
Yeah. Jedi Jar has a big role.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to illustrate, because I think the Maul story kind of gets at what we're talking about. Like, it was originally going to be on the episode 1 Sense, which is an uncommon from Coruscant, I think.
Right.
And we thought that was going to be fine, and then somebody looked it up and found that there was like one in stock at Category 1 Games. And so it wasn't as ubiquitous as we might have thought. And so we kind of looked for other images. We had some cosplayer images, but it's not like a cosplayer with like Grievous or something where you don't see the face. Like, the guy was recognizably not the same actor as Darth Maul. So we kind of went back and forth on, okay, what image do we use? Can we use this cosplayer image? And I think we finally settled on if the trace is correct.
Yeah, I think so. However, I haven't seen the PDF, and I'm going to kind of like, the graphics team is working on it, and I don't want to have a look at it because I kind of want to be surprised myself. being on D&D, you miss out on this like big surprise of like here's a full spoiler for your set. So I'm kind of trying to enjoy the images because I know there's going to be some custom images on here, and I don't know. There might be an AI for Maul. I don't know if that's the case.
Oh, okay, there might be. I know Jedi Jar is doing some full template cosplayer images, so there will definitely be some surprises.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. He always does a good job. The whole graphics design team does.
Yes.
Next question from Imperial: has Drop been an auto-included playtesting? Tom, I want to take this one because this is technically my player card. This is a card that I really loved in Legacy. I played it in Ring of Before Me. I was a huge fan of it. Putting all my destinies back. It was not auto-included in playtesting. In fact, it was far from it. There were a few people that played it here and there, but no one found it very. Everyone found it pretty underwhelming, and I can't wait to play it myself. I'm not sure how everyone else feels, but we made a mirror for the light side as well. It was, looked like a pretty good kind of mechanic for a mirror, and I like having an extra grabber in the game as well. So
that was a card that we briefly made better in the course of the set design process, and we made it probably too good to the point where it was an auto-include, and then we kind of pared it back down to what it is now.
Yeah. All right, so next question from Avirial. If 5 is from one of the newer series, why not more fun information in the lore than just Clone Trooper and Spy? More generally, when does D&D ought to include other fun story flavor, whatever text mentions keywords? So we actually can't do that. So the only thing we're allowed to put into the lore is card game mechanics. We can't put any extra storyline or fun flavor back into it. We're limited by just game terms. So Clone Trooper and Spy are two characteristics that have a gameplay meaning. We can use those. We can't add anything else about it as well. And that's pretty much it. It's just a restriction with what we are allowed to do. Rules question from Israel: can diplomatic missions deploy R2 and 3PO combos? Yes, including the new one in this set. Can it deploy R2-D2 in Red 5? And that is no. And I actually had to ask this question myself earlier on. And anything that says to deploy a character or a card of board in this situation, I was told by rules, refers only to that character card and not to the other kind of potential personas of it. So I can't give you the full rules explanation why, but I know the rules team can, and I know the rules team has told me that you cannot deploy R2-D2 in Red 5 for the objective. I think it probably has to do with deployment restrictions, now that I think about it, because if it's an unpiloted starfighter, it has to deploy either to a docking bay or to a capacity slot of the capital, and there are none of those on table. If Darkside starts one and you start it, I'm scratching my head. I really don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It can't be because of deployment restrictions. Otherwise, like you could against Endor Ops.
Yeah.
Not that you really want to.
I think I'm going to defer to rules on this one, but I know that I was told that you cannot deploy R2-D2 in 5. All right, so what's the process look like for adding themes? The Black Sun stuff, for example, if you D&D say something like, we think the deck needs more characters, a capital or two, more locations, and go from there. Did it start closer to, we need a few more characters and grow from that? From a design perspective, we kind of look at some stuff that we think could use some help, some stuff that is good for the meta. Black Sun is a fun interactive deck that people historically have really liked, and we want to try to make a way to play that with more battlegrounds. So that's how we made these sites for this. So we kind of wanted to ease into it a little bit. One of its other weaknesses was space, and so we thought that this would be kind of like a cool way of giving Black Sun space a little bit of teeth. And some background on the Falling Fist started out as a ship that was basically like a presence of the Force itself, so that you could deploy it to Coruscant system to 2.0, and it would add the icons for you, so it would become a battleground. And then it tried to have a mechanic that whenever it died, it would stack under the system to activate other presence of Force. But that got kind of like weird with rules, and so we decided just making a Coruscant system that would just start as a 2.0 but become a battleground whenever you exist there, or if opponent took it over from you. So we didn't want to leave light side stranded where if they take out the fist, they're stuck at a 2.0 non battleground, so we gave them the option of making a battleground. As far as how do we decide what themes? I think we're going to try to slowly bring some stuff back, but from here out, we're really going to try to focus on new material. If a deck in the future we think could really benefit from like 1 to 2 helper cards, I think we might try to do it. Like look what we did with Rebel Strike Team this set. We decided to give it like an extra scout that could possibly get your card effect, and effects that could get your sights out easier. So that's just 2 cards, and Rebel Strike Team does now, and We don't expect it to be higher than tier 2 at the moment, but if someone finds something fun to do with it, that's great. In the future, we might add some more to it as well. All right, so these are more questions for development and Tom. So, Woodland asked, in testing, did Pandas live beyond turn 2 in most games?
Well, we did a lot of testing for the entanglements matchup, and in this build, the answer is no. But against a lot of other things, yeah, it's going to, because you've got the forfeit 7 R2 and 3PO, and that even covers like a Baron. So I think most of the time in the matchups with other dark decks, not entanglements, we're going to see Tantive surviving. It's probably not even worth attacking Tatooine a lot of the times, because all you're going to get is you're going to kill R2 and 3PO. They'll shuttle back up and move away if light side feels threatened, or maybe even battle if they don't. So there's the best time to disrupt Tantive isn't during your turn 1, but rather during turn 2 when they move over to core leg, or wherever it is that they choose to put their parsec, 4 or 5 system, and that'll slow them down much more significantly.
Yeah, we saw a lot of times that they would have a pit stop at someplace like Tangela, and then they would attack then. If you kill 3PO then, 3PO would go lost, and the plans would go, with the schematics would go back to the DNC, which really sets them back a little bit. So you're right, if you attack them turn 1, it's not really helping you a lot. Turn 2 would be a lot more beneficial if you can see the droid. Question 2 from Goglin, what's the intent of the new Maul canceling tech? It seems like a WAP thing, but you guys also find it to be helpful in other matchups. So primarily it was helpful in WAP, and the intent of the new Maul card in general was a more affordable Darth Maul, because Maul right now is one of the most expensive cards, whether it's the Apprentice or it's the ECT. Tatooine Maul still sees a lot of play and it's pretty affordable as well, but we wanted something that would pack a little bit more punch if you wanted to play matching weapons. So he may not be quite as good as the Apprentice if you're playing a matching weapon, but I think he still stands up on his own. I think he's pretty good. Hopefully we see him more in some builds with some double-bladed lightsabers, maybe play an Ugnaught and CCG, and get some sabers back, something like that. I think he's got some possibilities.
Right. One of the things that we saw even in Legacy was when we had decks with like Blaster Rack and Gifts of the Master that had great, we're playing Vader's lightsaber, we're playing Dooku's lightsaber, they were still playing EPP Maul, because that's how efficient EPP Maul is. And so this is just a way to try to make an alternative to that. And it might not. It might be that people still just want to do EPP Maul, but this gives another option if you're worried about decks like that. That Maul is a tool that you can bring out.
Yeah, this Maul is really good against EPPs as well. So if you see a lot of EPP Qui-Gon, EPP Obi-Wan, he really hurts them a lot. So if that's something you expect to see, he might be a better choice in some cases. Question 3 from Govan, why did it feel necessary to create a dark side Tatooine to protect the Devastator, and was V ship considered instead? Funny enough, we actually started as a V ship and moved to the system. We felt it was a more clean option, and it left some design space open in the future if the Devastator could be redone again.
Right, and the primary reason for that was we just wanted to fix one thing, which is Devastator against Throne Room with like squadron assignments or something, where Throne Room goes their turn 1, activates their like 5 force, plays something, kills Devastator, boom, the end. But we didn't want to let Entanglement start according to my design, have the Emperor on the ground, Devastator in space, and then be essentially immune in both theaters for their first turn. And the way to do that was to put the text on the system. So now if Entanglements wants to run according to my design, they're still going to be worried about running up against Watcher Step, which will convert their system, and Diplomatic Mission, which will convert their system. So they're going to not be able to rely on that game plan. And that's why we switched from the ship to the system, and the text on the system makes it so that's an auto replace in Entanglements and accomplishes the goals without without making According to My Design stronger, at least we think. Maybe people will still play According to My Design and Prepared Defenses for those matchups where Tatooine gets converted, but that seems an acceptable sacrifice for me.
All right, question 4 from Godwin was, why create a non-unique admiral? So I think, honestly, the primary reason is because there are really virtually no other admirals that exist in the Star Wars universe for light side. But I don't believe making a non-unique one is a bad thing. I think it's kind of interesting having it as a 2-dot admiral, so you can play a couple of them safely. I think it's a solid card by itself. It works with rebel leadership, and that's enough, I think, to make it a pretty playable card. We didn't find any issues in testing with it being non-unique. It doesn't have a lot of the synergy that you might think of, like with the bargaining table or something like that. But one kind of interesting thing is that there is now finally a light side card that cannot be deployed with Antilles Maneuver V, because it says ability less than 3 except for an admiral, and there was never an ability less than 3 admiral until now. So
I've always hated that text. I want to pull Ozzel.
Yeah, I can't pull Ozzel with that. It would be nice on turn 1. I think that's probably the reason that's there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
All right, so moving on now. You know about the Wookiee win. This is an easy one. How do we get the new black sun sights out? Are there going to be changes to the objective as well? So this was already answered. Imperial City V will pull the Vigo V, which pulls another battleground site. Typically, people have been playing Jabba's Palace to pull that and Jabba's Palace sites. Now you can play Caesar's Palace and pull Caesar's Palace sites. There will be no more changes to the objective itself. I think we have a pretty good chance in the future of adding more Caesar's Palace sites if we want to. Could be an interesting thing for player creator, make another Caesar's Palace site as well. We always like battlegrounds, so if you make it a battleground Caesar's Palace site, you've got a much better chance of being included. All right, so you had a question, Tom, actually.
I did.
Don't we need images for the Caesar's Palace sites? So,
that's right.
I do know that this is in the works, but again, I'm trying to keep this from spoiling for myself, but I do know we're going to have some custom images here in this set. So never fear, Tom.
Oh, that wasn't the. I thought that was one of those ones that. Didn't we do this before? We had like a public call for some sites, and like people went around and took pictures and like submitted.
Yeah,
I thought that was like one of the coolest things we've ever done.
I agree. I think that was a great thing. I think we should always encourage that. If you ever have images that you want to submit for a card, I think you should just contact anyone and post a message in the site. I think I always think that's really cool. It's nice getting new fresh images in there, especially something that players can contribute. I think that's all the questions we have, and I was planning on being here at around 5, and that's pretty good timing, Tom. Do you have anything else you want to add? Any other comments you want to have here?
No, I think the set looks good. It's been great working with all of the design team, and I'm ready for the next one.
Can you tell me
You're ready for the NPC.
What's your favorite card in the set?
Oh, jeez. Honestly, I think it's Wild Card. I really think that's a cool ship, and I'm kind of hoping that it might open up a non-squadron assignments based Watcher Step between that and Booster and maybe other things, just kind of an alternate, like more ground focused, and then random ships with smugglers on them. And yeah, it didn't get nobody's really gone over the moon about it yet, but I think it's a really cool card, and I like it.
I agree. I think it's a cool card as well. I was thinking the same thing when I first saw it. Maybe we can get away from squadron assignments, watch your step a little bit. I think the obvious answer for me for my favorite card would be my drop card, but I'm going to not take the easy way out. And I'm going to say I think my favorite card in the set is probably Cad Bane. I really like how Cad Bane's tested, how he's helped out Black Sun a lot. He's a pretty powerful bounty hunter. And, you know, I always like playing Black Sun myself. And then not being able to clear Jedi Loop when you've got like a bionic hand in his saber and, you know, the journal out, you just kind of think, as a Black Sun player, what do I do now? And it's pretty cool to me that you have a nice Cad Bane coming out there and cancel community and try to clear him off the table with some more of your manipulations on stuff. Cad Bane's probably my favorite.
Yeah, he fits in with the whole AOBS theme of like alternate ways of getting people off the table, you know? not going to overpower you. They're going to get you with tricks, and Cad Bane's yet another one of those.
Yeah, he's a good card. Not my design, but he's a very good card. I like him. All right, well, thanks, Tom. I appreciate you helping out here, so I didn't have to talk for a half an hour straight. And thanks for the questions that you guys sent in. We'll get this published here on the Star Wars CCG YouTube page. You can watch it again anytime, or if you miss it, you can catch it again. So thanks, Tom. Thanks to the players. Hope you guys really enjoy set 3. We put a lot of work into it.
Thanks, everybody.